plot is what keeps the characters moving. Plot creates conflict and tension, and that's what makes your readers turn the page. So asking about plot, I think the most essential quality of plot is it's going to create that tension and that conflict.
Welcome to the Author Like a Boss podcast, the podcast for indie authors who want to improve their writing, up-level their marketing, make money with their books, and have fun doing it. Now, onto the show with your host, Ella Barnard.
Hey boss, if you are starting on your author journey but are nervous about marketing, then I've got something special for you. I've just released a book called Start Marketing Your Book. In it, I share fundamental marketing principles and simple, actionable steps that you can take right now. For less than a cup of coffee, you could actually have everything you need to start selling more books. To buy the book, go to authorlikeaboss.com/start marketing. Hello, bosses. Hello, everybody. We are here today with the amazing Heather Myers. Now, I have to tell you, according to Heather Myers, full disclosure here, she is an acquired taste. She's a typical blonde Orange County suburbanite who says like way more than necessary, laughs loud and probably obnoxiously, and loves to dance in the rain. She's a 28-year-old college graduate with more than a few tricks up her sleeve, and she also happens to be a pretty big Ducks fan. Oh, and she's a writer, like totally for real. She also helps writers with their plotting and story development in her Facebook group, The Plot Genie. And you guys, I have actually just gotten to know Heather, but a little bit, like I can tell you for sure that she is going to give us some really good information. Like really, totally. I'm Northern California, so not quite as much not likes, but I can play. Heather, thank you so much for being here.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
I feel like I should say hella a few times just to represent.
Of course. Oh,
I should totally hella say hella.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and your author journey?
Yeah, absolutely. I started writing seriously when I was a senior in high school, and I started on this website called Fiction Press, and it's still around. It's actually the sister site of fanfic.com. Fanfiction.net, I think it is. I used to write fanfiction. I used to read it. And then I kind of switched over to write my own stuff around the time I was 18. And it's very serialized fiction, cliffhangers after every chapter. And it's all free for readers and free for authors. And that is how I wrote a bunch of different books. Around 2012, I started looking into publishing on my own after getting so many rejection letters from agents. And it wasn't until probably 2015, 2016 that I really dove in and learned more about the processing of how to treat this as a business and not just a hobby. And this is where I am today with that knowledge and still writing and still publishing.
Awesome. Now I have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
Because you're not the first person who started with fan fiction. Like I've talked a number of successful authors. Like I started with fan fiction. And now I'm curious now because I've got a little bit of a taste. I'm like, ooh, because I just am curious. What do you think did you learn from starting with fan fiction? Like, because in my mind, I'm like, you have the characters are already developed, like they're already truly real and you know them because they, somebody did that work. So, right. Yeah, can you tell us like how, I don't know, just guide us through like, what do you think, what benefits there were, or I don't know.
For me, for writing fan fiction, it was more like, because I'm a big shipper person. I love, relationships and shipping and everything. But I would always ship the people that weren't necessarily canon, or they should have been canon, but the TV show just didn't, go that way. So fanfic really helped me because I found my tribe in a lot of different places, in a lot of different ships. And so I could read taking characters that I loved, that I wanted them to be together. And so fanfic helped the plotting, because even though you have the characters who are already pretty developed, you're taking them and you're putting them in your own story. You're creating, even though the world is already there, other characters are there. For the most part, you are still creating this. I wouldn't necessarily say it's unique, but it's your own story that is somewhat different from the show or from the movie or from the book. And so fanfic helped me develop that. And there were cases where I would insert original characters, and it got to the point where then I was like, this character from the show is perfect with my original character, but I kind of, why don't I just create my own characters in my own story? And then that way I could actually create my entire story by myself. So it kind of ebbed and flowed in that way, where, I took these already developed characters, this already established world, I played around with them, and then I was like, this is really fun, but I want to do this in my way, where I can create the rules and the expectations, and I can go from there. So I was very heavily inspired by fanfic, and the authors there are they are so amazing and talented. Like, even to this day, sometimes I will go and read fanfic just to sort of immerse myself in a world and in a character, in a relationship, just because their character development, the relationship development, even the world building is so, it's comparable to a lot of these big time authors. And I feel very privileged to just be able to read and learn from them, because everything is so free, and they are voluntarily writing out of their own free time to supply entertainment to whoever is willing to look at it. So that's how fanfic worked for me and helped me with my craft, and pushed me to be like, well, if I can write fanfic and I can create my characters for this established world, why can't I do that for myself and just create my own world and my own plot and my own characters?
That's awesome. And I am just in this moment, realizing that I am absolutely positive there's a Firefly fanfic out there.
Oh yeah. I am positive there's probably out there.
Because I have a thing about stories not being finished. Like it bothers me so much. Like I read most of my books in one sitting, because I'm like, I don't like that tension of not knowing what happens.
Oh yeah.
Like, I hate that. And so I'm just now being like, I need to go find some Firefly fanfic so I can have some resolution.
Oh yeah. And I'm sure there are going to be tons, and I'm sure there are like, not only are they are going to be there, but the quality is going to be so good that you're just going to be like, they need to do this. Why can't this person write for the show? Because I did that I was really big into the Walking Dead fanfic.
Mm-hmm.
What else? Like, when I started out, it was Lord of the Rings, Pirates of the Caribbean. There's so many. There's so many. I know, because I've talked to other authors who like, yep, started in fanfic for, there's tons of fanfic to start with. So you guys, if anybody listening knows of some really quality fanfic for Firefly, please reach out to me. Because I don't have a lot of time to browse and stuff, but I do have a lot of interest and would absolutely read it. Yeah. If you're like, this is where you want to go, please let me know. Okay. I can finally have some resolution around that show. I'm like, whatever happened to River? Dang it. Okay. Next. Off of that tangent. Thank you though. I wanted to ask you, so you said that what you got from writing fanfic is a lot of really learning about plotting. And as we said in the intro, you're also at the Plot Genie. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about plotting, and because I've talked with you before in your character development and plotting and stuff, and you're really, really really knowledgeable and really excellent at communicating it. So you can tell it inside and out. So can you tell us a little bit about plotting? Sure. I mean, I'm not an expert or anything like that, but a lot of it Plotting is just, to me, it's getting your character from point A to point B and figuring out, okay, how is he or she going to get to point B? And there are going to be obstacles and it's going to be hard, but your character is going to change and you're going to have a story from it. A lot of people, they ask the question kind of like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Is it what came first, the characters or the story?
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it's always characters. So a lot of the times it'll be two characters. Usually, my heroine and her love interest. And I'm like, okay, what kind of relationship do I want them to have? And once I get that, okay, what world should I set that in? And what are the problems they're going to face? How are they going to get together? And I start asking myself questions. It's essential to your story. Characters and plot are essential. One is not more important than the others, though I know that readers really fall in love with good characters. So that's really important, is to create characters that your readers will love. But in terms of plot is what keeps the characters moving. Plot creates conflict and tension, and that's what makes your readers turn the page. So asking about plot, I think the most essential quality of plot is it's going to create that tension and that conflict. And if it's possible, every single page should have some kind of conflict, whether it's external, internal. Your chapter should end on a hook and start on a hook. You want to keep your readers reading. And if they enjoy one book, they're going to go jump into book 2, or they're going to trust you enough to start a new series with you. And so plot is incredibly important, and it's definitely hard, especially in that middle portion of your book, because a lot of people know where to start, they know where to end, but it's about that bridge that will get them there where it's hard. So to me, that's, to everyone, it's as essential as your characters. So, yeah.
Okay. Something that, and I know that, like, I've thought about this before, it's a word that we all use, the tension.
Yeah.
And I want to, if maybe examples or some ways that you can create tension, I guess, and specifically, well, we'll go from there, but I kind of at some point want to talk about creating tension in that middle portion and talking about the middle portion, but let's just talk about tension for now.
Okay.
How do you, when you're like sitting there like,
yeah,
I need to make some tension on every page, or some conflict or something on every page. How do you, what's that look like?
Honestly, the best way to make tension is just to ask yourself, okay, how can I make this scene worse for my character? You know what I mean? Like, okay, in a way where it's obviously believable, like she could be breaking up with her boyfriend and then a meteorite comes and, takes out the city. Obviously, okay, that's going to create a lot of tension, but your reader's going to be like, okay, this is not within the realm of possibility, at least in the story world. Let's move on. So, to create that tension, it doesn't have to be physical. It can be. A sex scene is tension. It's conflict. It's literally physical. A physical manifestation of conflict. So there's that. When you have a disagreement, when you have a fight, when one character is withholding information from another character, that is conflict. It can be something as simple as, okay, the weather in your story is a hindrance to your character. Let's say your character is a pirate and he is trying to get to an island and there is a hurricane or there is rain or there isn't one to carry his sail. So he's not getting there as quickly as he needs to. A good way to create tension is to create some kind of like timer, like, X has to be delivered in so many minutes or hours or days. Like if there's a time span where something needs to get done, that's going to create a lot of tension. And then, just remember that tension, it can be a subplot as well. So, your character's parents are divorcing on top of the fact that she just found out that she's a witch. So now she has to go to school and a new school to learn about all of these powers. And, just all of these problems start arising. And in order to overcome them, that's where your character development comes. So conflict and character development really go hand in hand. But in terms of creating tension and conflict, don't be scared of it. I mean, some of the authors that I work with are like, well, I don't know if I want to create too much, but in essence, you need all of the tension that you can get, again, in a believable way, because that's what's going to hook your readers. That's what's going to make your books addicting and unputdownable, essentially. And that's why tension and conflict is so important. But don't fear it, because there's so many different types of conflict and tension that it doesn't necessarily have to be a physical battle or, anything like that. It can even be internal, where the character is fighting against themselves or against their beliefs. So as long as, you just remember that there are so many different ways to express that and to create that, it shouldn't be too much of a problem.
I think that's beautiful. Like, I don't think that that's something that people think about all the time, the way that there's just so many ways of creating tension. And I really appreciate just you're like, you could do this or this or this. I'm like, oh, like it makes me want to get one of those, what I thought of as, those like conversation starter kits where they put them in the middle of a table when you're like hanging out with strangers. And they're always like these questions, like, would you rather be invisible or fly? Or, or if you had to make a choice between saving one person, your mom, or saving 1,000 people, and you're like, ooh, like it just makes me think about that kind of thing. And like, I should get one of those and it'll help inspire ideas for my books.
Right. Or even like, if you have like a plot point, you can ask yourself, okay, so each time, like, your character has to constantly make choices throughout your book. And if you look at it, you can be like, what are the consequences of, this choice, even if it's something positive. So like, if your character decides, okay, she's going to go save her love interest, maybe she's some kind of superhero and she's going to go save him. Okay, what are the negative consequences of that? Okay, well, if she chooses to save him, somebody else is going to get hurt by the villain, or she's going to be wasting time when she needs to, meet someone, or he might find out who she is. So if, I know everyone's supposed to, let's think positive, but as writers, we need to think negative, but we're doing something, negative, but for the right reasons. We need to, create that tension and that nail biting, and for the reader to be like, okay, just one more chapter. So whenever your character comes to a choice in your story, that's when you have to look at, okay, let's list out all of the consequences of making this choice or making this choice, and let's go with the one that's going to have the most consequences.
Yeah, I now, as of now, I have a new goal, which is to make my reader want to throw the book. Yeah. And then go race and pick it back up. Like, exactly. Oh my gosh, dang it! Right. And then be like, wait, I need to know. Like, that's right. Like my new goal.
Exactly.
Because nobody wants a story where it's just like, and then she got up and brushed her teeth, and then she went. Like, there's no tension there.
No, it's boring.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. So let's talk about you talked about and I don't know if this all goes together or not, but for me, in my mind, it does a little bit, which is knowing where you've mentioned a few things, knowing where your character's starting and develop, and where you want them to get to at the end, developing, and how you create tension and conflict. And what do you do for all of that in that middle portion of the book?
Yeah, I mean, it's so subjective because it depends on, obviously, your genre and the characters that you're creating. What you have to ask yourself is, what your character's goal is throughout this book. And the goal is going to change, but you kind of need to keep that in the back of your head, because your character, if you do a good job, is going to change in some way. Her belief system is going to change. And part of you writing this book is going to be her resisting that change pretty much throughout the entire book. So that middle section is this new reality for your character keeps kind of jumping in and is like, hey, you got to wake up, or hey, this is what's happening. This is what's happening. And your character is kind of like resisting it through that middle section up until the climax where, fate literally has to smack her and be like, no, you have to make this choice. You know what you have to do, and you have to basically do it. So in another way, it's kind of like, okay, let's say, you start, your character has to, she's a witch and she's going to this academy for witches. So she has to train, so your middle section is essentially her getting used to, the school. Maybe there's some kind of, mention of a bad guy or whatever. And she's going to start, her controlling her powers. And, we're going to see her fail a little bit. So she's going to have some lessons and she's going to cast some spells and they're not going to be good. Maybe there's going to be negative consequences. At the academy, maybe she meets a boy there and he seems awesome, but he's really not, so she's going to make some bad decisions with him too. Maybe she trusts someone she shouldn't, so all of that is going to fit into your middle. And then, maybe, she finds out that, okay, well, the boy is really, the bad guy's son, and he was just using her to get close to her because, I don't know, she's some kind of prophesized witch who's supposed to lead them all. And, of course she's resisting this. She's like, I'm just a girl and I just barely found out that I was a witch. And, but in the end, there's a battle and she saves the day because that is what she's supposed to do. So essentially your middle is you're throwing these blocks, your reality, like this new reality that she needs to sort of grasp, right? That is basically kind of, hey, you kind of have to accept this. And your character is just resisting it the whole time. She's like, okay, yeah, I guess I'm a witch, but, I'm still new at this. I'm not powerful. And then, the next day she says a spell and basically, I don't know, starts a fire or something. Yeah. And that's when it's like, okay, maybe I'm powerful, but that doesn't mean I'm going to be great at being, so it's just sort of like.
Okay. So
Yeah.
Okay, so she starts at one place, like, we're just going to go with this witch example.
Yeah.
So
right.
I'm a brand new, didn't know I was a witch. And at the end, obviously she's going to like own to some extent that she's a witch and save the day.
Right.
And so the middle part is the building her up.
Exactly.
And with a couple of pitfalls.
Exactly. That's the important part is that your readers are not going to be happy if she is great at it. Like she's just perfect at being a witch during her first try. Because your readers aren't going to like perfect characters. In the fanfic world, if you created an original character, usually for either the bachelor guy or like the major, good looking guy in the, for Firefly, it'd be Nathan Fillion's character, I think the captain, right? Mm-hmm. If you created this original character and she's beautiful and she can fight and she's awesome, people are going to call her a Mary Sue. No one likes a Mary Sue. You're not going to get a lot of reads on that. Your character has to be relatable. And to your point, she has to fail a few times. That's what the middle is about. Like, it's her failing multiple times, whatever she's trying to do. Like, so her goal might be, okay, I want to go to this academy to learn more about being a better witch. And she's going to fail. She's not going to be a great witch, She just learned all about this. But the way that your character handles each failure is essential for your character development. So she's going to either pick herself back up and, obviously this is going to get to a black moment right before the climax, but it's essential that the middle part is, her resisting this change or her overcoming this failure. And, that's what creates the conflict. And each sort of failure has to build on the next one. So it has to be a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, until you hit your black moment, and then you go straight into the climax after that. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And it's different for each genre.
Absolutely.
But the ideas are the failures and what they're trying to achieve will be different for each genre, but it's still the idea of they need to be imperfect. They need to have failures. The universe that you create needs to be throwing all kinds of crap at them that they have to deal with.
Right, exactly.
And sometimes they'll do all right and sometimes they won't. And sometimes they'll think they do all right and then they actually didn't,
right.
et cetera, et cetera. Okay.
Right.
Hijinks. There's all kinds of hijinks. I love that word.
Pretty much.
Okay. So when you're doing this for your own books, are you doing this like, are you making an outline? Are you plotting an outline in advance? How are you doing this with your own writing process?
Yeah. So for the most part, I do outline. And for me, I've worked with all different sorts of outlines, and I find that I work really well if I give myself maybe a few points that are going to happen in the chapter. So not super detailed, unless when I'm creating this outline, I think, okay, this person has to tell this person this for this reason, because sometimes you get so wrapped up that you forget little things like that. And those could be important little context clues for your reader to help you build up. So when I'm doing my outline, I'll usually obviously have the chapter number if it's in anyone's point of view, and then maybe like 2 or 3 sentences, unless it's an important chapter that has important information in it that I can't forget.
Okay. So you're like, this has to be said now so that later in the book, it's not like, where did that come from?
Right.
Okay.
And I think it's important, at least for me, that I keep it a little bit short too, just because I'm still being surprised, and it gives characters the space in the room to sort of tell me their story as well, if that makes any sense. Like, I don't want to be held specifically to an outline. I find that if I get too detailed for my own stuff, then I'm sort of like, well, I practically wrote the book, so why is this going to be fun to go back and expand on that when there's nothing really left to surprise me with. So for me, I'm a good like 3 to 5, sentences per paragraph is enough, where it's like, okay, I know what I need to write, but I also leave room to still be surprised or to still make the decision in the moment.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I like that. You're working with yourself. You're like, yeah, I need to do that. Okay. And what is your writing routine? Like, how do you make time to write?
It's really hard. I'm sure everyone, the great thing about, finding, writers is that everyone can relate with each other, but your friends, your husbands, your children, they have no idea what it's like to be a writer, because essentially you're doing this for the love of writing until you start getting paid pretty well for it. For me, I make the time. So I wake up at 4:30 right now, just because it's summer and my kids are home, and I don't want to really miss out on spending time with them, but I also don't want to sacrifice writing time either. So I wake up, and by the time I finish, sometimes it depends on my work, like what my deadlines are, but I'll write between 2,000 to 4,000 words a day. And by the time I finish it, it's roughly maybe 6:30. I take the dogs for a walk, and then after that, that's when the kids start waking up. So I really like it because it's the only time I can write. I've always been a morning person, and I find that I'm most creative in the morning. And my day, I'm basically awake by the time, they wake up. So I don't really miss out on any time with them.
And you've gotten it done, so you don't have to think about it for the rest of the day.
Exactly. And it's sort of like the days, because every now and then there'll be a day where like maybe the baby will wake up earlier than she normally does. And if anything kind of messes with the routine, where I can't write until like, let's say 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning, in my head, I'm like, this whole day is shot, just because I'm just like, I don't feel as creative because I have 3 other things I have to do, either family based or, things like that. And I'm just like, I just don't feel creative. I don't feel like I can pull this off the way that I would if I have that sort of uninterrupted piece to sort of just write. So
how are you making it work that you're getting up at 4:30 a.m.? Like,
I just set an alarm and I just get up and that's it. That's what I do. I mean, I'm kind of used to it by now, and the kids are sleeping, so that's pretty much. I mean, they don't really disturb me, and all I'm doing is sort of writing, so that's it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, and you guys, we can hear said kids
a
little bit in the background.
My husband's supposed to be watching them. Apparently.
They're like, Mom is not giving us attention. She's talking to someone, not us. It's okay. Okay. So cute. You guys, I have a thing about other people's kids because I like to listen to them.
Yeah.
I'm like, they're so cute back there. Okay, sorry.
No, that's okay.
I'm like in crazy baby mode right now, so don't mind me, everybody. Okay.
No, we can just ignore her. I'm sure my husband will be there in a second.
Okay. Okay, so let's talk about. Now I got to know you through the Plot Genie, which is where you do your plotting. But then when I was looking and doing research for this interview, I was like, "Dang, girl, she has a lot of books out." So can you tell us a little bit about your journey to becoming like an author in terms of making money and having all these books out that are doing well?
I think one of the best market. It's so hard. Having a big backlist really helped me. So putting all that time when I was a lot younger into writing really gave me this collection of, like, at the time, 20 books to play with. And they were not that great when I wrote them, but that's what editors are for. So in terms of like actually, making the money and carving out time, when I was doing fiction press, in order to get reviews, your readers have to trust that you're going to update the story. So to go back to what you were saying is you don't like unfinished stories. In fanfic and even, on fiction press, writers are going to start the stories, but if they don't get reviews, they are not going to finish them. If you want the reviews, though, you have to build trust with the readers. And that's essentially, it's still the same. For me, it's the same mentality in terms of writing and publishing. If I start a series, I have to finish that series. I can dabble in other series, but I need to make that promise to the reader where if I say something's going to be on sale, November of this year, I need to make sure that it's published so they can trust what I'm telling them. So I was very disciplined in terms of, okay, I have to write, I have to hit my word count. And then once I had the backlist, it's like, okay, great, but I'm not making money off of that. What do I need to do? And that's where I started networking with other authors, joining different groups and seeing what worked for some, and just having the open mind to either test things on my own or to take someone's advice and do what they tell me to do. Because yes, not everything is going to work for me that works for somebody else, but at the very least, I need to be able to test that. At the same time, you still have to keep writing. Like that's your job. And so once, maybe from like 2013, 14, and 15 into 2016, 17, and now 18, that middle part, I was transitioning from, okay, this is just a hobby. I don't really have a lot of readers, whatever. And now it's sort of like, no, this is my business. Like if I want to do this full time, I need to be able to treat this like a business. And so that's one of the most important things that you can do if you really want to be, a full-time author, is you have to treat it as a business that you love, but also a business.
I love that you're talking about that because I just outlined a book based on like professional indie authors. Like, what do they do? And and the number one thing that I was like, the number one thing that professional indie authors do is they treat it like a business. Like, and that's exactly what I'm like, that's what this chapter is going to be called. Treat it like a business. And so
I mean, you have to put in the work. Like, it's, if you think about it like your job, you can't just wake up and say, I really don't feel like going to work. I mean, you could, but at the end, if you keep doing that, you're going to get fired. You're not going to be very productive, and you're not going to build that discipline and those habits that are going to get you to the success that you want to achieve. So you have the same thing. Like, I don't want to wake up at 4:30 in the morning. I give myself Sunday to sort of not do anything, with a Plot Genie, with my writing. That's my one day to sort of just be by myself and do my own thing. But every other day I'm up at 4:30 because that's what it takes. And that's what I want to do. And I think that it's really, really important. Any author you talk to, no one is going to tell you, oh yeah, I want to write every single day. And if they do, that's good on them. There are days when I don't want to write. Like right now, I have this book that I need to outline, and I am like resisting it because it's a little bit of like, I feel sometimes like, oh, is the story too big for someone like me? Can I really tackle it? And it's, in the end, of course I can tackle it. Of course I can do it. But I still need to sit down and put the work in, or else the story is never going to get written. And that's a product that I could potentially sell. And you can sell this for basically the rest of your life, or however long Amazon or whatever other retailers out there exist. And even then you could sell it on your own website. But you have to treat it like a business. You have to put in the work, because if you don't, then you're not going to get to where you want to go. And I think that that's what a lot of new authors, or authors who think that, oh, I can just write a book, put it on Amazon, and make tons of money from it. Like, that's not how it works 99% of the time. Mm-hmm. You do have those people who they do have that instant success, but a lot of the times it's not so instant. They might be in other writers groups, picking up advice, listening to the advice, and applying it before they even make their debut. And that's a brilliant strategy, So just do the work and, test things and research things and, take it seriously.
Or they could have written 15 books that they never published, but they've been in writing groups for, 10 years. And then finally they put the one up and it's an instant success. And all you see is that the final result, but you don't see all of the work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I would agree with you that I'd say like 99.9%. Like, we don't know all the stories, but everybody's been working pretty usually people put some work in before they just have an instant success. So, yeah. Or they have a really awesome title, which like 50 Shades of Grey, which is like maybe one of the best titles I've ever heard, even though the book is, I haven't read it, but I've heard, and I like erotica, but I was like, I can't read it. But the title is...
It's brilliant.
Oh my gosh. It's such a good title. I'm like, I would, according to the title, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. So can you tell us a little bit, what are you doing for your marketing now?
So for my marketing now, right now, I'm trying to learn all I can about Facebook ads and Amazon ads. I would definitely say I'm not an expert, and I'm so resistant to this because, you're essentially, it's all about testing, and that's going to eat your money. But if, what I need to do is I need to start thinking about it like, okay, it's not going to eat my money. This is just a learning experience. So maybe I'm not going to necessarily make that money, but it's going to be an experience. It's going to help me learn. So essentially in the end, it's going to be good for the business. But before I even I don't want to just throw something up there. I want to research this as much as possible and then start testing things. So right now, I'm reading Brian Meese's book. I'm reading, Help, My Facebook Ads Suck. And then I'm doing some, I'm in a couple of Facebook groups that are helping with that. I did take Mark Dawson's course, and he's excellent. But I think for me personally, I need more of a one-on-one, especially since my genre and Mark's are obviously totally different.
A lot of the, and you guys, this is just me, a slight tangent, but a lot of the entrepreneurially like Facebook ad, like how to do Facebook ads, how to do this launches and stuff are geared towards other entrepreneurs doing coaching services kind of. And so you're like, this isn't quite exactly the same. My audience, it's kind of adaptable. I want to recommend to you actually, and to anybody who's listening, I had 2 interviews. J.R. Castle, she and both of these are out, all of these are out already. J.R. Castle, I don't remember which episode she is, but she does advertising for her full-time job, and and then like she does marketing and advertising. That's what she does, but she and her husband also write books, and so she does all of the ads. And so in her interview we talked about Amazon and Facebook ads. And then also Danielle Annette, check that episode out, because she talks a lot about Facebook ads specifically, and she's like, this is what I found works. And she like and we get deep dive into what the ad looks like and how she's and she writes probably urban fantasy, so it's closer to what you're
definitely
writing.
That's awesome. That's great.
Yeah, so check those out. I'll send those to you guys and put them in the show notes. Sorry, I have this coaching, like I am definitely a coach. So let's go back into generally with your marketing, how do you recommend building a relationship with your readers?
So for marketing, I'm a big proponent of like giving books away for free. I know there's a lot. I feel like an author is either one way or the other. There's really not a lot of authors who are down the middle, even though I can understand not doing that. You know, you put a lot of time and effort and money into this. This is a product. The way that I see it, though, is that I'm trying to gain the reader's trust. Like, they don't know me. They don't know me, you know, compared to a lot of these big publishing houses, you know, who have authors who have essentially passed, you know, they went through the gatekeepers. I'm just somebody who writes books. So I don't mind giving things away. So, you know, I am in Kindle Unlimited, and I use my free days, and I do try to give away books, not only to, you know, potentially new readers, but to my readers who are on my mailing list as a reward just for being on my mailing list, for picking up my books, whether they're free or on sale. It's important to me, because at least hopefully, even if they're not buying the book, maybe they'll share the book with their friend. Maybe they'll post a review. So I'm starting to do that more consistently, where, you know, maybe once a month I will use my free days on one of my books. And, you know, I have so many books that it's not so much of a loss for me, because a lot of the time the book itself isn't necessarily making that money. So I'm just kind of like, okay, well, let me try to jumpstart this book over here, you know, the standalone that no one's really picking up anymore. You know, it has decent reviews, you know, maybe not I'd like, but it has enough to at least get a couple of advertisements going on. And then I just sort of let my readers know, and you know, I you know, paid for the newsletter advertisements. I know that a lot of people do not like the newsletter advertisements, and I would agree that, you know, for paid books, even 99-cent books, they're not necessarily as, you
effective.
Effective as they once were earlier on. But I think free is a different story. You know, I think at least from, you know, I did my book one of my hockey series, and I did pay a few, and I got a lot of, I was very pleased with everything. And I got a lot of downloads. I'd say, I think I got either 4,000 or 5,000 downloads. And that was my goal for, you know, that book. And it's great if you have that, you know, sell through to book 2, book 3, book 4. I was promoting a book 7. So, you know, I was hoping to attract new readers, and, you know, that's what I did. So I think for me, I'm a big proponent of free.
Okay. It's an investment.
Oh, yeah.
Like it's free for them, but for you, it's an investment. Like, it's like, this is an investment in my business.
Right.
Giving this away for 5 days or however many days, like, and you're in front of 4,000 or 5,000 new people, right? That maybe you wouldn't have been in front of 4,000 or 5,000 potential new customers,
right? For
the cost of whatever you aren't getting paid for that day.
Right. And that's the thing. And again, I think free works incredibly well, especially if you have series out, and so hopefully they see that and they enjoyed book one, then they're probably going to go on to buy book two, book three, book four.
Mm-hmm.
In the end, you're going to make up that, that cost. And if they enjoy your writing, they'll join your list or they'll follow you in some way. So at the very least, you will still be able to contact them, and they could potentially be, a lifetime or however long you're in the game for, like a buyer for a long time.
Yeah. I really like how you're basing it on also building trust.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people don't think about the trust building aspect of marketing. Right. And it is like you're building trust. You're like, hey, I have, like, that's why people will go to McDonald's.
Right.
It's because McDonald's, even though like the food is like meh, like it's okay.
Right.
But when you go to McDonald's what you're going to get, and you trust it because they're consistent. And so building that trust with people and being like, yeah, I can make a good story. Here's the first one, because you have so much time. People only have so many hours to devote to reading in a day. Even if we all like it to be 24/7,
right?
We still there's more books than we could ever read. So to build that trust with the person, being like, here, try this when it's free for your time. And if you like it enough, maybe you'll give me more of your time. So
or it's kind of like Costco, right? Mm-hmm. They have all of those samples. I mean, I go into Costco with a list and I try those samples. And if I like something well enough, I'm buying more stuff than I thought that I would, because I'm like, that was really good. I want more of it,
Yes.
I mean, even to a degree, right? Like Fortnite, that huge game, that game is free. Like anyone can download that game, but the game is making so much money because of the in-app purchases. But I mean, the game itself is free. Nobody is forced to make those purchases, but people do because they want to. Like this game is billions of dollars. Everyone I know is talking about this game, and it's a free game. And I think that is like, and to the other point of view, I do understand, like, we've all put time and effort, blood, sweat, and tears into this. But at the end of the day, if we're looking at this as a business, this is a product. Okay. And, if you're a new author, who has like a book, maybe it's an epic fantasy that's 150,000 words. Maybe it's a romantic comedy that's 50,000 words. And you think that you can, you can sort of just charge the same price as, an established author, a traditional published author who's, $9.99. Mm-hmm. That's great. And I really admire that. And maybe if you do really well with Facebook and Amazon ads, you can totally do it. But if you're just starting out in the game and your budget's not that great and you're not comfortable with ads, then your pricing has to be something where readers are going to look at your product and be like, I've never heard of this person, but I'm willing to try this because it's free. Mm-hmm. And half the time, I understand that maybe readers will never read my free book. Maybe they won't see it as valuable because they got it for free. But I'm not looking to convert 5,000 new readers from all of those downloads. I understand that I won't. But if I convert like 100 of them, even 50 or 70 of them, that's 70 people who will definitely go on to buy my book. Mm-hmm. And to me, like, that's a worthy investment. Other people, it might not be, and that's perfectly fine. So, it's just, you kind of have to make these decisions as an author. And in terms of marketing, that's helped me a lot. And being in KU and getting the pages read, mm-hmm. And getting those people who will buy those books. I mean, after the free days were done, I made all of my investment, my monetary investment back. And to me, I made enough where I was like, okay, that's a good investment. Let's keep doing that until it's not effective anymore.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I love the idea of a free book as a Costco sample.
Oh, no, right?
You're like, I never thought of putting caramel popcorn with cheddar cheese popcorn, but now I need to buy this.
Oh, right? Yes. Exactly.
Like, these are really tasty together. I'm buying this and eating all of it.
It's crazy what I've eaten there. And I'm like, oh my God, this is delicious.
Yes. Okay. So, what advice would you give to other authors? Like, what's your best advice for people who want to have this be their life, being a full-time writer?
The first thing I would probably say is to start a mailing list as soon as possible. There's so many different options, and there are cost-effective ones. And I'm sure that you can just Google, which mail provider should you use. But being able to retain direct access to your readers is essential, because any other platform, social media, Amazon, BookBub, they could disappear in a second, and all of those followers could be gone at any moment. But being able to retain email addresses so you still have a direct way to contact your fans, that's going to be so crucial and so helpful. And then just take it, like I said, have a business plan, take it seriously as a business. Like, what are you going to do to get words on the page? And that doesn't necessarily mean you have to write 5,000, 6,000 words a day. Even if it's 500 words a day, you have to do it consistently. And then in a few months or so, you might have a 50,000 word book. It just depends. But just take yourself seriously, research, and don't be afraid to test. I work with a lot of authors, or I'm friends with a lot of authors who have their own companies, or their own coaching business. And there are so many authors who are resistant. They will pay to be coached, but then they are so resistant to what the coach is offering them that it's like, you know what I mean? Like,
yes, I do.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. Whereas you're paying me for this advice, at the very least, I know what I'm talking about. I have multiple clients who have applied my advice, and they have seen success. And a lot of these authors either think, no, my book covers are perfect, or my ad copy is perfect, or my blurb is great. I'm not going to change anything. If you're not willing to test things or listen to or other people's advice, especially ones that you pay for, then you're not going to change, and you're not going to be successful. You have to take responsibility over your own business, and you have to adapt, because the self-publishing game changes so quickly that it is so important that you are able to leave your ego at the door and be able to just adapt. Sometimes, I know I've invested in a whole set of covers, and I've looked into the genre, and I'm like, I have to completely redo these. So yeah, the investment, all of that money is gone. But if I want to get noticed, if I want people to buy my books, and I've got to get new covers. And I don't see that as a negative thing. Another crucial piece of advice is you have to have thick skin, but just be positive. It's so important that we go with the flow in this particular instant. And I don't necessarily mean don't have a plan for what you're going to do, but if the plan doesn't go accordingly, be able to adapt. Just, okay, this didn't work, so let's try this. And it doesn't matter, because in the end, you're going to be successful, and yeah, I just think that it's just important, and network with other authors. We're all in the same boat. This community, for the most part, is so tightly knit, and it's amazing to see, listen to podcasts or join writers groups, and you have all of these successful authors who, some are making 6 figures a month, are willing to share their advice. And just, don't be jealous of that. Don't compare yourself to that, but soak up what they're saying and then try it for yourself. Don't think that this is impossible, because everybody started out the same. Everyone was at 0, and you just put the work in, keep your head up, and, have that mailing list. So
I love that. And this is an amazing industry. People are so generous with their time and advice. And I get sappy all the time. I'm here people in this industry are so good. And I know there's a few bad apples, but overall, Seriously,
Oh, yeah.
it's an amazing industry. Okay, tell us about your latest book and where people can find you.
So my latest release is called Call of Darkness. Now, this isn't a co-author with Rebecca Hamilton, and she's amazing. She has her own promotion company. She's a New York Times bestselling author, I think twice over. And it's a historical paranormal romance, but it deals with vampire pirates. So yeah, it's the second book. So you have to read book one. This isn't a series with a bunch of standalones. It has a long flowing story throughout the whole series. It's honestly, it's something I'm really proud of just because I love pirates. So the fact that they're kind of getting back into like, popularity, even if I have to make it a vampire one, I'm just really excited. So there's a bunch of like historical nuances, piracy, maybe some witchcraft every now and then, but it's something that I feel like in terms of my writing, I'm very proud of. And the first book is Sea of Darkness, and I'm starting to write the fourth book now, which is also the last one. So it's been such a journey for this particular series. I'm really, really proud of it. In terms of finding me, you can find me on Facebook in the Plot Genie group. It's literally just called the Plot Genie. I actually don't have a website, which I feel is like a huge faux pas. I'm just so lazy.
You're like, you have to run this as a business, you guys.
Yeah, but I don't have a website, so how can people find? I know I'm such a hypocrite, but yeah, I have a Facebook group. So I mean, that's one on my like to-do list of this year is to get a website. But I'm definitely on Facebook, and I am on Amazon is where I send people because that's where my books are.
Okay. So that's where I'll send you guys. If you come check out the show notes at authorlikeaboss.com, I will have a link to our Amazon page and to the Plot Genie Facebook group, which is a fun group to hang out on, and I highly recommend. I've spent some time in there, and I'm like, ooh, this woman is brilliant. So, okay. Thank you so much, Heather.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been such a pleasure.
Thank you for being here. And thank you, everybody, for listening. Hugs and happy authoring, Author Like a Boss. Hey, boss, you made it to the end of the episode. You're the best. Because of that, I'm going to give you a special invitation to find out more about the Author Boss Academy, where I and a bunch of really awesome authors hang out, have fun, and get stuff done. If you end up joining, tell me the secret word and you'll get a special bonus. Find out more about the Academy at authorlikeaboss.com/academy. The secret word is nipples. Hugs and happy authoring. I hope to see you soon.
If you love the Author Like a Boss podcast, we'd love for you to subscribe, rate, and give a review on iTunes. Until next time.